Julia, you've met these very high level Qigong masters that can do some really amazing telekinetic stuff. Could you describe what you've seen in China and what your experiences were with these very high level Qigong masters?
Yeah, sure. I'd be delighted to, because by doing that, I think people understand more about what your own Qi and life force can do and the different qualities of Qi that you have within you, because it's not all the same. So the probably the most amazing Qigong masters I've worked with is actually in Australia at the moment, and he and his master and his grandmaster, they basically have a training program, and you learn over the years how to do things like project your Qi into like bamboo or scissors or a bottle of water. And with the bamboo, it's a bit more clear to see what's happening, because the bamboo, you know, he can basically bend it and make it hard and make it not snap. And it's a very long piece of bamboo, so you can actually see the sort of wave going through it when he projects his Qi through that. I have seen Qigong masters also basically move objects like tissue boxes, or put out flames with the Qi that's actually just coming out through there, you know, just practicing stuffing a flame. And then they basically move that candle further and further away, so that, you know, at the start it feels more like it's the wind. You're just like flapping it,
Yeah.
but after a while you just get more and more precise about projecting that Qi. And, you know, so people who are around me who can actually see energy, often they will say, oh, look, I can see the energy rays coming out.
Right.
And depending on the quality of your Qi, it often starts off a bit gray.
Right.
And the more and more refined and advanced you become, and you obviously have to become a master of your emotions and thoughts, the more silvery white it becomes.
Right. So Julia, so how many of these super underground, high level, you know, lack of a better word, telekinetic Qigong masters do you think exist in China altogether? Like, just based on your knowledge.
Oh, I don't know, because I only know it's all anecdotal, or people that I've met, and they all compete with each other, or they connect, and they often come from different schools, and but everything is like top secret, and yeah. So, but there is kind of a hierarchy and rankings, and people sort of do have levels. If you there is a book called Dragon and Tiger Qigong, which was written by somebody who has sort of fictional martial arts world, and that will sort of give quite a bit of insight of how things like that work. But generally, you have two different types of masters. You have the masters who have been trained by their grandfathers or fathers, or the school, or, you know, come from the Shaolin or the monk schools, and that have been where there's an advantage through your DNA, because that family, that bloodline has focused on that skill, and you've been trained properly. And then there's also the ones that are very talented, where they've just come out, you know, they're international. They're just, as kids, some kids can levitate. I've met people who can speak to the wind, and they always have been able to. I know people who can move with water. I'm probably more of a water bender myself. And for me, the water bending is less, yes, you can, you know, I'll play around at the beach making things choppy and calming them down. But for me, it's more, I can move the water inside of me and change. It's kind of like I'm singing more to it, and I can also hear the bones when they move. So for me, my specialty is actually more the biological stuff.
Right. So in our telekinesis community, we call that hydrokinesis. But yeah, that's
hydrokinesis, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's really cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. Interesting. Okay. So
because the elements are within you, and if you can talk to the elements and, you know, respect the elements, because each part of you, cells, elements have consciousness,
Right.
and you can work with them.
Right, right, absolutely. Okay, okay. So, so these, um, so like, to your understanding, why is it that they keep it a secret? Like, obviously, the telekinetic knowledge is fair. Like, I wouldn't say it's still fairly underground within the spiritual community. I think it's becoming more available now, thanks to the advent of the internet and such. But why do you think these qigong masters kept it top secret? Like, what is your theory on that? Do you think it's because people could possibly abuse these knowledge, or what is your understanding of that?
Well, oddly enough, the answer is really simple. Is when you have these special powers, there are a lot of authorities or power figures who will try and come and get you to work for them and use your powers for purposes which you might not agree to. So, I've been involved quite a lot with the remote viewing community, and it's quite, there's this, everybody always tells the story to each other that there was this gentleman who, said to the military, hey, I can know exactly where all of your naval vessels are or submarines are. And this was in the 50s and 60s. They didn't believe him. So he went into headquarters and they showed him a map and they said, right, show us where all the vessels are at this point in time. And he just pointed to the map, and they were gobsmacked. He was absolutely right. And then they asked him, can you tell us where the Soviet ones are? So he tuned in and got that right. And what did he get in exchange? They took away his passport. Confined him to his house for the rest of his life because, he had access to national secrets, and they were worried that the Russians might get hold of him.
Interesting. Okay, okay. That is
And
so fascinating.
yeah.
So
and there's lots of kids. You look at Corey Gooden. There are, basically
right.
in China and in Russia and in America, there are programs where they keep an eye out for talented kids, and they then get special training or they get special observation.
Right, right. So, right, right. So, Julia, what about in terms of healing? Like, have you heard some incredible healing stories that these qigong masters can perform? Perhaps seemingly incurable stuff that these qigong masters can heal and stuff like that. What would you say is by far the most impressive story that you've been able to witness or hear?
Yeah, well, I was actually quite lucky because I was in Beijing just before Tiananmen, and there was a very famous female qigong practitioner who was reputed to have these incredible healing powers, so that like crowds would come to her. I was at the university at that time, and some of my Chinese classmates basically invited me out to see her, and she had a whole football field of people, and it was pretty much like people who were in wheelchairs could walk at the end of the sort of mass group qigong that she did. And I think there it was sort of harnessing a wave. And I did go and do a session with her in Beijing because of the healing powers, and I just wanted to understand more about it. And I'll share it with you because it also gives you an idea of what you would have to tap into, and what is important when you're practicing or moving energy. Because things, like when you experiment with Kundalini, a lot of people can basically fry their nervous systems by downloading too much of the sort of white lightning energy if they haven't built up the magnetic reserves to cancel it, to embed it in. So a bit of a cautionary tale. So anyway, I went to the session that she had in her courtyard, and there was a whole group of us, and my Chinese was not very good at that time, so I probably only understood 10% of it. But she basically wanted to anchor everyone back in. And she said in this courtyard, she said, everyone turn around and face the direction in which you were born. When anybody gives me directions, it's like, all right, do you go right or left or forwards or backwards?
Just out of curiosity, so did people actually know like which direction they were born in?
Well, everybody else except for me. And I was in a courtyard in Beijing. I was born in Berlin. I was going, well, I wouldn't have a clue. But in
Oh,
Beijing,
that's right. You're born in Germany. Interesting. So
in
you're
Beijing,
you're half Chinese, half German. Am I correct?
yeah, yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah. So I think sort of the rational mind took over in terms of my education. But so yeah, I was in this courtyard and I couldn't see. I didn't have a phone in those days. I didn't have a compass. And it's just like, whoa, I don't know where north, south, east, west is. So I was with an English friend. So I just copied him. I went, oh, compared to, they'll be in the same direction. And then the master came over, and I've seen other masters do this as well. So the first thing they'll actually do is a bit like some of the shamans that I've worked with, is that they'll actually, they won't work with your upper chakras. They'll actually make sure that your root and your lower chakra and that your energetic field is actually grounded. So she came around the back of us and walked around of us, and she basically just waved along the hips and just gently sort of, a bit like when you see the Indian or Indonesian dancers or the Thai, you see all these ribbons going downwards in the clothes. Those are actually the Nadia, the energetic lines that basically flow downwards. And she was basically just unfurling them and basically connecting them, grounding them back into the earth. And that's what she did for everybody. And then for some people, she would go under the root and sacral chakras, just clear the area underneath there. And that was the sort of the healing that she did on a group basis that I wanted to share because, there I kind of knew what they were doing. With the other Qigong masters, I, depending on where I was in my journey, they would have done stuff and I wasn't really aware of what they were doing.
So you haven't personally witnessed any kind of miraculous healings and stuff like that. Like Greg Braden often shares that famous.
The cancer, yeah. Well, look, I've worked with Qigong masters who basically teach in the hospitals, and they work it. But the thing is, you've got to understand is that they are never as sensationalist as something like Greg Braden. So yes, I have trained with Master Zhao, who is actually head of a Qigong hospital in China. You can actually get treated either by Western medicine or through Qigong. And they will give you both the traditional plants and the herbs. They will also show you the exercises, and the doctors will actually do Qigong on you. And they have a great track record for treating chronic illnesses and teaching people what kind of Qigong to do to basically build up. Most illnesses, especially chronic illnesses, are a combination of either a sort of informational incorrectness, so programs aren't working the way that they should be, chemicals aren't being processed the way they should be,
right.
Or simply energetic imbalance. So, if you've had a car accident, for example, and there's been an impact, your energetic field will probably have a hole, a puncture in it, right? So you can eat as much as you want and you sleep as much as you want, but if your aura is punctured, it's just going to be leaking and you're going to be flat and not going to have energy. So a lot of people who have that sort of chronic fatigue, and Master Zhao was actually invited to New Zealand and Australia because he actually was able to heal his daughter when nobody else was able to do that.
Sorry to interrupt, but this Master Zhao guy, is this the guy that was actually performing in that famous Greg Braden video?
No, but the doctors in that hospital, they all do that.
Okay.
Greg Braden made the fact that for the Qigong doctors, that's perfectly normal. They're all basically, that's part of the treatment, is the doctor will come around and they will basically supplement somebody's qi by beaming, and the qi masters will do this as well. They'll actually supplement your own field by giving you some of theirs. So you get an upgrade. Because they've done the training and they've been trained, so it's kind of like giving you refined energy to run through your system.
So you can't really claim that.
I can't claim the credit for that because the life force flows through each of us, and nature flows through each of us, and sometimes it's the moves, the range of moves unlocks something that was frozen and frees up something else. Sometimes it's simply that, you might say something that inspires me to make me think differently, and then new potentials are available. But Yes, of course, like with the masters that I mentioned, sometimes you learn from some that it's possible to do it. You experience it yourself, and then you can do it for yourself and you can do it for others. You can hold that space and do it.
Right, awesome.
Which is why people watch your videos, because you can do it, and they want to find out how to do it, and because they know you do it, they know it's possible. They're willing to try it out, and then they'll find a way to do it.
Right. Okay. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Julia, for sharing.
Yeah. Sorry, can I just add one more in?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the other stuff that I've seen, and I've traveled around China a lot, and you see the martial artists a lot. So some of that stuff is, the stuff that you train in karate and kung fu as well. To your energy to be stronger than matter. Smashing those bricks on your head, or you're having the sharp metal, and you're basically bringing chi into your belly, and creating it as a energetic guard, so that even if somebody is trying to cut you with metal, it bounces off. So I've definitely seen a lot of that, and that's always convinced me. It's not quite mind over matter, but it's energy over matter.
That's what's generally called hard qigong, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's the
hard.
Yeah. Okay, that's where you train to be an iron shirt, and to condense your energy, like a turtle, so that and it's basically working more with your wei qi, which is the outside layer, the defensive energy, versus with the healers will work with the yin, which is the nourishing energy that runs through your blood. So there's different specializations. Cool. If you're looking to move in telekinesis, all I can recommend is that you basically do something which does more of the spiraling, more the dragon tiger kind of qigong is probably better for you, because you want to be able to move it from within you to the outskirts and then further on. And then
what is that called again? The tiger qigong?
Dragon tiger. Anything with dragon or tiger moves in it is
so
spiraling energy. Spiraling.
Right. So for the telekinetics, this dragon tiger qigong is what you recommend. Like if telekinetic people want to get into qigong to perhaps improve their auric field or whatever you want to call it, like this dragon tiger qigong is what you personally recommend.
Yeah. And the dragon is basically the energy that runs up your spine, and from the extremities, like from the ground up through your bones. And then the tiger is your autonomous nervous system. So the one that that keeps you safe when something is coming behind and it makes you jump. So it's actually your greatest subconscious. Your whole field is constantly scanning, and that's the one that interacts with the outside.
Okay.
So if you're trying to move stuff outside of you, you've got to have basically those two energies integrated.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Okay.
And then a bit of yin as in magnetic attraction energy as well, just understanding the concept of yin. Okay,
cool. Okay. Well, thank you so much for this interview, Julia. I've learned so much, and it's great to know that there's some really hidden underground people in this world that we're just not aware of, so that you can't find on the internet. So that's really cool that you got to meet these people.
And if you want to meet them, your paths will cross. I mean, the kung fu master that I spent time with, trained with for 4 years, he spent 9 years looking for his master, but he did find him. And it was really hard because the guy was top secret because because of the issues.
Cool. Okay. Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Julia.
All right. Thanks a lot, Ken.